linda está la mañana en que llegó esta verdad. Venimos todos reunidos con gusto a felicitarte. Ya viene amaneciendo y ya la luna se metió. Despiértate, amada mía, mira que ya amaneció.
Well, we're on our never-ending quest for Spanish escopades, and we haven't found any yet, but we did bumble into this wonderful spot, and I understand there's some serious Spanish stuff in there, so we're going to go in and look around. There's going to be some guns. Let's take a deep look at the little room here that's full of guns and full of history at the El Morro National Monument. Let's take a look. Let's go here first. Okay, 1540 era, Coronado is looking for the golden cities. He wants to replicate the conquest of Mexico. He comes up into New Mexico, and later in the same century, in the 16th century, let's say 1598, Oñate comes and actually conquers parts of New Mexico. And during that time period, during that 16th century, they would have used these. And these are all original, believe it or not, all collected in New Mexico. It's astonishing. Okay, this is a cup-hilted rapier. It's not a light little sword. It's a great big monster of a sword made in Solingen, Germany. Those are maker's marks. Now, it's possible that was counterfeited, but the sword is apparently of that era and genuinely old. That would have been quite the weapon against non-steel type adversaries. That would have been something. And also, frankly, it was a fashion statement, but boy, it was a heavy one. Big sword. Small breastplate. Look at the proof mark. That's where somebody fired a musket or pistol shot into the armor to show that it was proof. Look at the holes in the sides of the breastplate so you can attach other armor or clothing. Now, at the bottom you can see it's flared out for tassets to protect the thighs. So somebody was wearing this, and somebody was pretty small because it's a small breastplate. Again, it's supposed to be original and collected in New Mexico. Astonishing relic of that era. Now, this is a caboset. This is a pikeman's helmet, which implies that either they were using leftovers or pikemen actually marched their way into New Mexico. Again, I would not have been surprised if most of their weapons were crossbows. Apparently they had Aztec mercenaries with macuitos, the obsidian swords. So maybe you had pikemen here. That little cup is to hold some sort of symbol or feather or banner or whatever, not big banner, but some little emblem. Fits in that little flower holder on the side. Again, it's a small helmet, and it's riveted with holes to allow the liner to be attached. Imagine walking across New Mexico with that on your head. That would have been warm. Now let's go to the next one. Come on. This is exciting. So, 1598, Acoma, right where we are, we're close anyway, attacked He fled on foot, and they had a tremendous fight. The whites responded with the sword, maybe that sword, killing hundreds of Indians and destroying Acoma Pueblo. Many Indians were captured. The legend is they cut their feet off so that they would never be able to fight the Spanish again. The Spanish cut the Acoma warriors' feet off. Let's find out if that's true later. The Catholicism is here. We actually had an Inquisition in New Mexico. We had it wasn't a big, bad, horrible thing. There were many conversos, crypto Jews, that came to New Mexico, and so the Inquisition was hunting for them. And we had encomienda. We had all kinds of the other slavery. You can see that in the book right here. There actually was slavery in New Mexico, but it wasn't really slavery because the King of Spain had said that there wasn't supposed to be slavery, but there was encomienda, which was forced labor, and that, some of it, believe it or not, was practiced right up until 1960 something by people who were out in the middle of nowhere. So it's only, this is the other slavery. The book's worth reading. Okay, now you get to the juicy part. This is why El Morro is so fascinating. Later on, we're going to see the actual inscriptions of this. The Pueblo Revolt happened in 1680, and the headman Pope sent knotted strings to all the Pueblos to tell them what day to rise up. For once the Pueblos came together, and under Pope, they rose up and kicked out the Spanish, and the Spanish retreated down to the Rio Grande, down by El Paso. But the thing that gets me here is not all Spanish left, almost all, but there were still a few hideouts, and there were still people who clung to the Spanish culture, although Pope himself was absolutely against Spanish culture. But we've actually got some relics of that. What a battle this would have been. And then we're going to see later in our tour, De Vargas actually, when he comes back, a young, arrogant aristocrat coming back in the 1690s to take back Reconquista of New Mexico. He comes back with fire and sword. This is him. And he really lit the place up. And by then, the Pueblos had experienced political disunity. Pope had vanished. There's some rumors about where he went. Where do we think he went? Anyway, it had melted down, and disunity had struck the Pueblos again, and Vargas picked them off one by one. Now, come with me and see this. This is an awesome Lehman Plains rifle. It's by Lehman, the Lehman brothers. And it's large caliber. They can't tell me how big, but it's something like 60 something from the look of it when I look around it. It was brought here when the first gringos showed up from the United States. On top, that marking on top is a sales mark from where it was sold. But let's go through this rifle from the beginning to the end, and then I promise I'll hurry along. Okay, first of all, it's a plains rifle. Big chunky barrel. The thing must have weighed a ton. It does weigh a ton. Crescent butt plate, hurts your shoulder. Cap box, not a patch box, a cap box. You come over here, it's got double set triggers. If you look at that, there's 2 triggers, so it's almost a luxury gun. A percussion lock with a pressure hole in the front of the hammer. You come up here and you've got wedges, a wedge, single wedge, with a silver nose cap to hold the half stock to the barrel. You've got really pronounced rear sight that's driftable, although it's got marks to show where to zero it. It's got a wooden ramrod, and it's got almost no front sight. I mean, that's a little dinky front sight. But that's the real deal. That was collected here in New Mexico, and that's what they were carrying in the 1850s and 1860s. Now, check this out. This is Beale's expedition to create a wagon road, a southern wagon road, in 1857. So, context, the gold rush is in full bloom. They're trying to get around the Sierras, so they're coming in. And these guys were unique because they used camels. And they did it. They came across. They even brought people from the Middle East to herd the camels. Now, one more, and then we'll get on the trail. You got to see this. This is the wars between the New Mexicans and the free tribes, and they're fighting all the way through. The Navajo surrendered in 1864. 8,500 of them were forced to make the long walk to Fort Sumner in eastern New Mexico. It was brutal, final 1868. But, you know, we don't think of the Navajos as warriors, but they were at the time. And of course, code talkers in World War II, so they got theirs, didn't they? But here we have a relic worth seeing, and that is an 1860 Colt in beautiful condition. The front sight is missing for some reason. I don't know. It would have been used way into the 1870s, and it's configured for a shoulder stock, although I doubt one was used with it. The more I know about Kit Carson, who was part of the big long walk, the less attractive he is, frankly. Okay, let's now get on the half-mile trail and look at some of the inscriptions here at El Morro. I think it's going to blow our mind. We're here at the pool at El Morro National Monument. This is historically an incredibly important pool. It's available, I mean, it's like a third of a mile walk from the visitor center. This thing is not a spring, believe it or not. It's totally runoff. It's totally runoff from snow and summer rains, and you can see on the cliffs around that the water is channeled here. The ancestral Puebloans used it in their daily life, and then later, after they left, other Native Americans used it as they moved from place to place trading. The Spanish first got here in the 1580s. We have our first recording. And after that, the people just kept coming. People have changed it from time to time, modified it a little bit, but it's still here in the middle of a waterless place. One of the blessings of El Morro National Monument is we are standing in the exact spot that people of history stood. The ancestral Puebloans were right here, right where I'm standing. Later, Native Americans were right here, right where I'm standing. And right where I was standing, right here, is an inscription by General Don Diego de Vargas, who was in charge of the Reconquista in 1692. After the Pueblo Revolt, after all the bloodshed and chaos, he's coming back. And it says, General Don Diego de Vargas, who conquered for our holy faith and for the royal crown all of New Mexico at his own expense, was here in the year 1692. So he's coming back. That's his inscription. Right below that, you can see Williamson. Williamson was one of the first wagon trains to try to get to California without crossing the Sierras, coming through here in 1858. So 40 families, they did their inscription, they moved on to the Colorado River and were attacked by Mojave Indians so badly that they retreated back to New Mexico and tried again the next year. So that's the inscription before he and his friends were attacked by Mojave Indians. Think of that. Think of the history. Here's another inscription that's really fascinating. This is 12-year-old Sarah Fox in 1858, passing on her way to California on the first wagon train. She was attacked with the rest of the wagon train by Mojave Indians at the Colorado River, was wounded with an arrow, and survived. Went through all that experience at the age of 12, and still. We've only covered a small portion of the inscriptions up here on the rock at El Morro National Monument. Thousands of people visited this scarce water resource, and hundreds of them carved inscriptions on that rock up there, and they're very worth seeing. It's kind of boggling when you think about the centuries and centuries during which people have lived and traveled through here. Up on the bluff where we didn't go, and I promise I'll get back, is the ruin of an ancient ancestral pueblo, and they lived up high. Apparently there were about 700 of them at peak population, and apparently they left around 1350. One of my great puzzles that I will research further is why a sudden age of fortification happened with the Native American populations here. All of a sudden they're living up in cliff dwellings, they're living on top of rocks. We don't know why they were doing that. Man Corn is an interesting book that you can read to get a very provocative concept of what was going down. But while they were here, it was a very rich environment. Because they didn't suppress fires, this area right here probably had atroplex and rabbit brush, kind of a brushy terrain. There was some agriculture going on, although probably not exactly here. But around them, there was the pinyon pine, this thing here with 2 leaflets. Little pine tree, little pine cone, great big pine nuts. A person could gain weight on this. And there was juniper. There was all kinds of foraging. This place was a rich environment. So they had a good life here. And they had water. So that's it for now with El Morro National Monument. And we're going to come back.